I spoke with you back in January on the same topic, and the question is, how can we make history again? We all went to the Michael Eisner talk, and we learned that that was his major question: how can we make history? And I think we can do it, but I think in order to do it, we have to get on the leading edge instead of the trailing edge of technology. And particularly, I'm talking about sustainability issues. Things that we've been sort of ignoring. But one of the things that we could do right away, and I am in league with Congressman Darren Soto on this. I'm on his environmental committee, and I'm on the environmental committee for the county as well. One of the things we can do is to start putting solar on some of our public buildings. And we can do that using PACE money so that there's no initial outlay of funds. And we can also ask Duke Energy to build us a solar array, as they have done for Disney. They're putting 20 of these in the next 10 years around Florida. And we could volunteer to let them put a solar field in Celebration. That's just the first two things. They're cost-free to us, but I've got a list of things here that I'd like you to consider that I think would be really helpful for a lot of reasons. But one of the things it would do is help us to make history again. And I think that if we do these things, that we will see people wanting to move to Celebration. I don't think we'll see as many vacancy signs around, because I think people will be buying houses if they are leading-edge technology homes. Another thing is there's going to be a county transportation meeting at 11 a.m. next Monday, April 24th, down in the county office building. And they're going to consider transportation alternatives, including pollution-free solar transportation all the way from Disney all the way to Kissimmee. And I suggest that we should have somebody there. It's a program called Transit X. It's completely financed from out of state. We don't have to put any money into it. And it would be, dare I say, the next step after the monorail. And the last thing is, I'm on citizens advisory committees on the environment at the state level, at the county level, and with Darren Soto. Why don't we consider setting up a Citizens Environmental Advisory Committee in Celebration for people like myself who are really interested in the environment, to get together and talk about things that we could do and take some of the load off of you and help to do the research and learn what's available out there and then bring it to you. So those are my suggestions. And I have a piece of paper I'll leave behind.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
And I will say that environmental issues are one of our strategic goals coming up.
Okay, good. Well, please consider some of these.
Okay.
Green.
I am the green guy.
Who's on the green committee?
And I'm happy to do any kind of volunteer work that I can to help you to do things of this nature.
And that's who you're next.
President hat. I like this. This is much.
Just wait a second.
His name is Jack Stanley. Mike Stanley. Mike Stanley. Go to Transit.
Watch your feet. Don't
Yep, I see it. I know it's there.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vanessa Winter, 711 Teal. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to serve on the Recreation Committee. I'm looking forward to that. We've already had our first meeting, so thank you very much. But I also took the time to watch the recorded workshop and the meetings from last month that I was unable to attend, and then had some recaps for the strategic planning and the board organizational meeting from those that were in attendance of it. And since they obviously are not recorded. With my resident hat on, I'd like to reinforce the importance of not going backward. Currently, workshops and meetings are recorded. Transparency has been a word used by if not all of the board members, at least one or two of you, more than once throughout your time on the board. And I believe that recordings for meetings and workshops should continue. If it's something that you can't put on recording for the owners, then it should be something that is done behind closed doors. I'd also encourage the follow-through of the previous board's commitment to review the management contract, which obviously you're working on now. Ultimately, the board selects, more importantly, actually work on getting a committee together or a task force together. Ultimately, the board is select the members. If you believe a potential task force member would have a hidden agenda, then don't appoint him to the board or don't appoint him to the task force. The Education Task Force and the Recreation Task Force were highly successful. I think that they followed the board's objectives very thoroughly without deviating from what the ultimate purpose was set by the board. The board's responsibility is to review all contracts, and many of the current board members have been doggedly firm about 3 bids per contract. Management contract's one of the largest ones. That's something that that either the task force or the board needs to figure out, though. It's not something that can just be put aside. It doesn't mean you award it to the lowest bidder. You award it to the company that meets the qualities and the qualifications at a fair price. CCMC is a valued partner and has provided excellent customer service for Celebration. That absolutely needs to be continued in any conversation at all that happens around the management contract. You have many community members that have been extremely vocal about this, contacting fellow community members. This is a situation that's not going to go away. And if you don't address it head on, it's going to fester. It's your responsibility, just like when I was on the board. You have lots of different things that you have to deal with, and you're barraged with a variety of things that you need to handle on a daily basis. It needs to be addressed head on. Thank you for your time.
One question. Would you be willing to serve on that committee?
I've already asked you
That
that.
sucker on my floor.
At some point, you would have been better off being a board member.
No, I would, in whatever capacity I can serve, that's something that's much easier for me to manage time-wise than actually being on the board. So, yes, I would do need to do that.
All right, well, at this time, let's call this meeting to order then.
No speaker?
Pardon me? No,
Anyone else that came in late need to speak?
nobody else signed up. Is there anybody else who wanted to speak? Okay. So let's call this meeting to order then. Before we adopt the agenda, we had never come up with a complete decision on whether we're going to film the meetings or not. Okay.
The workshops.
The workshops. So I'm going to open up to the board, say your opinion, and then we'll vote on it.
I'm not for recording workshops.
Okay?
They're an informal conversation between the board. There's no votes that can be made. There's no, so there's really no reason for it to be recorded.
Okay, Dave?
I think in our discussion last time, we said that we would not record workshops, but we would have detailed minutes. I thought that was our conclusion. I thought we had already resolved that.
I thought we had said, especially with the contract, that we would film these.
I think it was because
I think it's appropriate that we film the things as far as the content of the contract, but with regard to discussing particular
details,
companies and their offerings, I would prefer not to release that information until we've discussed it and then made a decision. Okay, just to protect their,
what we had talked about. So.
Yeah, just protect their bids. Okay, go ahead, Debbie.
The reason why I think the workshops should be more open discussion and not filming is that, again, for people taking snippets of it, it can be misconstrued. And we do provide the minutes, which gives an entire picture of the contents. So I would be not for workshops, but yes, of course, for meetings. And all meetings also in the workshops, all meetings are public. So.
Yeah. Paul?
Well, when we say minutes, I mean, I'm okay as long as they're very detailed minutes. I've seen minutes before that basically is just, here's the motion and it was approved or not approved with no discussion, none of that part. So if it's a very detailed, basically transcript, word for word, what happened in the meeting, I'm fine with that. I mean,
Like the CDD minutes?
I don't know. I don't recall
not-
what the
yeah.
CDD minutes are, but
It's just more detailed minutes, it don't have to be transcript.
but yeah, I would prefer it to be filmed. The more transparency, I think, as what Vanessa said, I think the previous board, the last 3 or 4 years, Eric and Vanessa worked real hard to improve transparency. So they saw that as an issue in the community, and that's why there was a high level of distrust and about what kind of things are going on behind the scenes. And by having it on film, that's a way that we can sit there and tell people, hey, listen, it's our workshop, everything is out there in the open. There's no reason for you to not trust what's going on. Go look at the tape, go look at this. So I do hate to see us go backwards on that. So I would prefer the videotape. I guess that would be okay as long as there's a very detailed transcript of our meetings so that people can go back and say, because a lot of times our meetings, we won't have any discussion because we basically made our decisions in this meeting that's not being filmed. So all the public sees is us sitting there saying, as with the last contract, here's the biggest decision the community makes, and what we see as a community is a 30-second conversation of, okay, we're going to extend the contract for 5 years, and yes, it's better than anybody else. So, like I said, the board has made a lot of progress the last 2 or 3 years to get away from that. I hate to see it. I think it's just awful to go backwards, and there's nothing really to fear. But I guess it sounds like it'll be outnumbered, but as long as we have a detailed transcript where people can look at exactly what happened in that meeting, because that's where 99% of the discussion happens that gets to the results. So for the public to only see 1%, I'm just totally against that.
Okay, Leonard?
Yeah, basically I started with what Tim said plus what David said. Basically, I agreed with everything Tim said, and then David elaborated on what Tim had said. Transparency doesn't mean filming. Transparency means we let people come in. We have notes taken that do cover what we talk about within the meeting. But sometimes in meetings, people throw out stupid ideas, and they don't know they're stupid until they have said them aloud, and they've kind of been bashed around just a little bit, and then it's like, yeah, that was pretty stupid, wasn't it?
Agreed.
And
well, oftentimes people change their minds.
And well, that's where I'm going. And then you have a mind change. And then it gets to be, if someone has an agenda, they can say, well, you said this and that. And I've always been one where when I talk to anyone in the public, I get 2 people that don't agree on things, and I say, I say the same thing to everyone on an opinion that I have. I don't go around morphing it to the audience I speak with. So I agree with having the minutes, and if you go past that even though, so the next step on that transparency list would be, we've never filmed committees. The Recreation Committee came in and worked for how many hours did they put in on an item that was never ever filmed? So we don't have complete transparency. The Recreation Committee comes through, they make the recommendations back to us. Much the same as we go through a workshop and we talk about where we're standing on some of the different issues. Then when we get to the meeting, sometimes we've had time to evaluate the other people's opinions, and we switch our votes. So that's where I sit.
Can I just add one more thing? I'm sorry. I did ask for the last year and a half, as far as how many people have viewed the filming of the workshop and meetings, and unfortunately it's less than 1%. I mean, we have to think of a better way to get information out there. This is it's sad, there's less than 1% that actually viewed.
Dave?
Yeah, the only addendum I would make, just a clarification, detailed minutes does not necessarily mean word for word, but it's really detailed. I mean, it's like the board had a discussion on this, 3 points on one side were made, 4 points on the other side were made that resolved such and such. So it's not a one-sentence summary. It's detailed. It's pretty detailed, but not necessarily a transcript. And I don't know how, Paul, I don't know how you'd feel about that.
Well, presumably, who determines what is and isn't in there? I mean,
as much as
I guess,
possible.
CCC does.
As much as possible.
Well, actually, it's got to be the board that votes on it.
The board would vote to approve it or not approve it. And so we can go through and look at it, and I guess we can get an argument about why wasn't this included in there.
Well, let me ask, before we get into this.
All of this is about building trust in our community, that we're being open and honest, and all this about all the decisions we make. And I don't see where this is building trust in the community, taking this step backwards. I see it as trying to hide things. So I don't know why we'd want to do that.
Let me ask one question. Who's going to take the detailed minutes?
Rachel.
Unless you have a transcriber, that's going to be very difficult.
Okay.
You're also looking at a lot of transition time between who's reviewing it, who's editing it, so it's going to be very difficult.
So detailed minutes.
Can we have a voice recording, so that, I guess the issue is that if somebody, somebody's sitting here and wonders what happened 4 years ago in the contract negotiation. So we're left, we don't know. So at least they can go back and say, okay, I want to hear the voice recording of this meeting to understand why that decision was made. We can do that?
That would be on a meeting, wouldn't it?
Huh?
That would be on a recorded meeting if we did the
voice
contract.
recording. Yeah,
But I mean, that would be on a taped meeting. It would be a regular board meeting for the contract.
They want to know what happened in the workshop, so you would have a voice recording, so they could go through and hear. This is why at the meeting it was said that this contract is far better than any other contract that is out there. So we would understand. Oh, they did go through all their due diligence, and yeah, they checked this guy. We don't know, but at this point, we don't know what happened. At least you have a voice recording.
Okay. Eric's a rabbit. Eric, go ahead. We're talking about the discussion of whether we should have videotaped workshops or not.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I'd like to elaborate on that.
What I would like to see is, right now, as far as the contract discussions, I would like to see taped meetings. But there are a lot of issues that we don't need to be videotaped. Okay, so unless somebody has another issue, I prefer, let's just go with the contract discussions being taped right now. And then we'll talk about the other ones later, at a later date. Does that work for anybody?
Well, we actually cannot vote at this meeting because this is a workshop. We will discuss.
Okay.
So I think you've heard.
All right, then
you can decide whether you want to record this meeting or not.
Yeah, we can decide
how many yeas or how many nays do we have?
Well,
I think in our policy that we record workshops.
You don't have a written policy. They just, along the lines, have decided to record meetings.
All right, there's only one other question I need to ask.
We're talking about making a change to our normal procedure. To me, you don't do it until,
Well, let me ask Pat one thing. Is there anything in your discussion that would preclude you from being taped?
And
okay,
he's actually, I'm sorry to interrupt, but he's recording it right now. It's just not live streamed. So if there was something that was said, we could go back and edit it.
Okay. I don't mind being taped, okay? I don't want it going out on YouTube. I'd like to find a way that we can just put it on our own site and make it available to anybody who signs in with the celebration.
It'll get YouTubed.
Well, it makes it a little more difficult still. Okay, so anybody have any problems with this videotaping this meeting today?
Can I just clarify, the only thing that I ever had a problem with, and I'd hate to think that all of this has come up because of a management agreement, because it shouldn't. The only concern I ever had was when I did not want to be recorded talking about future costs. If you were going to bid the contract, then I would get in the pile with everybody else, and everybody opens on the same day at the same time, and you do it in a room, and then it doesn't matter. But when you ask me for future costs, and I sit in a meeting, and I have competitors that live right here, quite a few of them, we're a very popular town. It's like, you know, everybody would love to know what their competitor is doing. So that was the only thing I ever had an objection to as far as the recording, was that if I was going to start talking about future numbers, I thought it was very unfair for me to have to do that, knowing that the whole world would know when in fact you didn't.
And I appreciate your feelings, and I think we can afford you that confidentiality. I don't see any reason for us to videotape any company's presentation to us. Okay.
Because based on what I'm going to go over on this little piece of paper today, there's been a lot of hullabaloo over 1.2%.
Wow, okay. All right, with that then, let's go and videotape, and let's adopt the agenda then. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Why do we take the temperature of the board?
So are we not streaming? Because I noticed I didn't get an
temperature
image.
of the board.
Yeah, we're not looking at the majority
Not
of the board.
streaming, it's
Jack.
just
What's that?
We're not looking at the majority of the board, too, so.
Okay, where are we at this then?
Well, I think we're at 4 no's and 2 yeses, and I'm not sure where you're at.
All right, let's take a vote. Who's in favor of videotaping? Okay, that's,
This is not for tonight, this is for all time.
this is for workshops
Workshop.
with regard to the contract.
For workshops or for workshops about the contract?
Let's do workshops first.
Where's workshops?
For workshops overall.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor of voting of videotaping workshops overall then? All right. All in favor of videotaping workshops about the contract?
Of workshops without the contract.
About the contract.
That don't have.
As long as it doesn't discuss competitive bids.
I think the general, well, okay.
Jack, it may be more helpful if you want to do a formal vote on this and take action on it long-term to actually make it an action item at your next board meeting.
Okay.
But for tonight's purposes, I guess the question is, Pat said that there's nothing that she's going to be discussing
Yeah, there's no reason not
that's
to
confidential. So for tonight's purposes, are you okay with recording and posting later, or is there a switch that we can flip for live streaming now?
Why don't we,
Record and store.
Yeah,
That's
because I
what
do
I-
have number of questions, so.
yes, if we record and store it, and then we can make a decision at a regular board meeting.
Okay?
That way you have this meeting recorded, it's held in abeyance until the board can agree on their policy.
On the
It's
conditions
been-
under which workshops are filmed.
Okay.
It's been recording since we started.
It's fine.
So we haven't captured everything.
All right, so we're off and running then.
Yeah.
All right, well then let's make it an action item for the next meeting.
Council's request.
All right, so let's adopt the agenda then. All in favor? All right. Okay, Pat, we're going to follow up with you with the CCMC current contract.
Okay, I tried to prepare where you did not ask me a question for once that I can't answer, so I've listened to everything you guys said over here. So you come up with a new question I can't answer, then we're gonna have to turn off the camera. Because I'm
Okay.
gonna get very upset. But anyway, just to go backwards a little bit, and as long as we're recording, so we'll put some historical data. And the sheet of paper that I have passed out to you, I am talking about two separate years. I'm talking about 2013, which was your contract in place when you sat down and reviewed the extension of our management agreement, which was voted on in that was voted on in late 2013 to go into effect in 2014.
Prior board.
So in 2013, your contract was based on a management fee, which in your addendum to your contract, each management fee for each year was listed, if there was any increase, et cetera, at the time. It also said that there would be an administrative HR fee of X% added to the payroll plus benefits in 2013. That's the way your contract was written. It was also written in a manner that on an annual basis, that if you wanted an auditor to audit to make sure that all we were doing is billing you for benefits and that percent, that the auditor would be able to do that. So that's the way it was in 2013. And at that time, on full-time people for benefits and admin and HR fees, it totaled for full-time employees 39.9%. And on part-time folks, it was 26.2%, which gave you an overall administrative fee of 38.3%. And of that 38%, 10% was the administrative HR fee, which is what everyone always says, what does CCMC get?
So you're saying that 28.3% was the actual insurance, the actual benefit cost?
And to go over that, that was benefits to include payroll taxes, FICA, FUTA, and SUTA, group life insurance, medical insurance, dental, workman's compensation insurance, retirement plan administration, 10-year bonuses.
Slow down, Pat. He's trying to write it down.
All up on the screen.
It's on the
So you don't have to write it all down. I can send you a copy.
He can send you a copy of this. Vacation, education and training, industry licensing and certifications, payroll processing, recruitment and pre-employment screening, performance management and administrative.
So a lot of these things you come up with estimates like education and training. Is that you use I'm going to throw in 1% for education and training. I'm going to throw in X.
Right. All of it is not to the pay. It's called the benefit package.
Right. So you use. So these aren't actual insurance costs. These are estimated, estimated based on this whole laundry list.
Yes.
You come up with.
Right.
This is what.
Is included in that percent.
It may not actually be what you're paying, it's just this is what we estimate what it costs.
That would be a correct statement. That would be a correct statement. If not, your big budget would be far more detailed. For example, CAM licensing is, they're required to do 8 to 10 hours of education on an annual basis, plus the license renewal. If they're a new employee moving up, they're taking additional educational courses during the year, whereas once you achieve your PCAM, you're only required to take one educational program every 3. So all of that is taken into consideration on the fund. So that's the way it was in 2013. When Todd Davidson came in and spoke with the board about changing to a bill rate system. Oh, and the other thing on just the admin fee, on payroll costs and insurance and benefits, back then it was on actual insurance costs and workman's comp. So if I'm going to say the risk was on the association. So if insurance rates went up, which we all know they have consistently over the last 4 or 5 years go up, then during mid-year we could actually change your bill rate to reflect that change.
No, say that again. If insurance rates went up, why would the bill rate change?
Because
it's in 13.
It was in 13.
Right.
It would have changed your cost because you only
wasn't the 10% on top of the base salary, not the add-ons?
It was 10% plus your medical benefits.
Right. So medical benefits.
So your benefits, if they went up because insurance went up. Back then, it was based on actual benefits.
So the 10% is not on the base salary, it's the base salary plus all of these?
Right.
Interesting. So what the base is?
Right. So that's the rest of the percent.
But that's the old contract.
Okay?
Okay.
So...
But may I interrupt for a second
Sure.
to make sure you answered what I think I heard.
Okay.
So you go through and you total up the total burden, and you add that to the base yearly wage, and then you add the 10% on top of that.
Right. No. 10% is on gross wages, and then your benefits is the other percent off of gross wages.
That's contrary to what I just heard.
Taking the 10%.
That's
contrary to what I just heard.
That's not what you just answered to him just a second ago. That's why I wanted to clarify what I heard.
So,
if a salary is $50,000,
right.
What's the 10% on?
On the $50,000.
Okay, so Okay.
So now you're.
So what they did, if you did it this way, you would say that on a full-time employee, $50,000, we would multiply that times 39.9% in 2013.
Got it. And if health insurance went up during that year,
We would have to adjust it.
adjust what?
You would have to, it could possibly adjust that percentage.
The burden rate.
The
It
burden
might
rate.
be, yeah, sure, it
The
might go
overall
up, but the 10% is still based on the base
Yeah,
salary.
the 10% will never change. It, just the benefit part.
10% is based on the, so if the health insurance goes up, the 10% does not change.
No.
It's only the
Okay,
29.9 changes.
Okay, so just, if we look back on the tape, we would find that that
Okay,
was not
well,
stated.
no, I want you to ask the
I
question.
want to be very crystal clear with that.
So, anyway, so when Todd came in and chatted with the board, what he said to them was that what he offered was to do an all-inclusive where all the risk was on CCMC. If costs go up, we eat it. If they, if we go down, we gain. If they go up,
Yeah.
and the same thing with bill rates. For example, if we were paying an employee $50,000 a year, and on the new system, and they left, and let's say the only person we could find made $60,000 a year, and I came to the board and said, because the contract states I can't change it without your permission after the budget is adopted, that I would say, gee, this person costs $60,000 a year, I can't find the 50. If you said tough, then I eat $10,000.
Okay.
So when you changed that, it became all inclusive, and did all that.
So may I be very, very, I
Okay.
want to
No,
hit this one more time through.
Okay.
So I'll go back to David's example of $50,000 is the person's actual salary.
Correct.
Right.
That they're going to receive. So then in 2013, you had, as I understood what you said before, you show a 39.9% burden, but that included your 10% add-on.
That's a part, 10% is part of that 39.
So then I would start then, and it multiplies differently if you do it two different ways. So if you take the 50,000 and you say, well, let's take the 10% out of there, because 10% of the $50,000 is going to be $50,000. I'm sorry, $5,000.
Okay.
And 29.9% of the 50,000 is going to be 14,950.
Right.
So that means that employee would cost us, that's earning 50,000, would cost us 69,950. Is that, do you agree with what I said, I guess? You can pull that burden rate.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we do. Susan's better at doing the math than I am. Okay.
makes sense.
That's a
You and me,
CPA
I'm gonna-
No, I understand what you're saying, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree, if the 10%'s on the salary, that's the 5,000, plus then you're adding the
Right.
benefits.
The 29.9% instead of 39.
Right,
39.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So that slide should say hourly, then 10%, then benefits. I think that clarifies it a little bit more, because the 10% goes on top of the hourly, not the benefits.
Yes, and I think this is the same question, so I'll ask it again. So basically, every full-time employee here, you take what they're paid, their salary, and add 41%. So if you're making $100,000, we are getting billed $141,000.
If that's what that multiplies.
Yes.
Every full-time, and then the overtime is
Right.
minimal.
That would be
Yeah.
right.
That's correct.
That
But
makes
that
sense.
includes all.
You're talking about the
all those benefits and
2017
everything.
way.
You're on the
Plus,
2017.
we are currently being charged.
Inclusive
That's
of the
what-
10%.
Inclusive of the 10%.
Well, I think that's important to avoid confusion for those people that are watching or that will watch later or hear this conversation later, is that there's a difference between the way the contract was in 13 and the way the contract is now. And I know during the strategic planning work session, you did ask to show the comparison, but what you wanted to see at tonight's meeting was how are things now? You didn't understand fully the contract the way it's written now. What does that look like?
Yeah.
So
Is
what?
that correct?
Is that what we're seeing in 2017?
So 2017, what we had to do, because when you went, so let me jump into
Yeah.
2017. When you went to what I am going to refer to as a bill rate method, even though we keep calling things bill rates on both sides. The other one is let's say it's an admin fee plus benefits. This is just a flat bill rate. when CCMHC has like 700 employees. So I'm going to try to explain this because it is complicated. Each community is looked at individually first, okay? Because I can assure you that I get all the payrolls from each of the different communities that I personally work with, and then I meet with each manager and I say, what kind of, kind of raise are you going to be present? Do you want to add to it or not add to it? Is it 2%? Is it 1%? Is it 3% or whatever? And then once I have that information, I make adjustments to that. And then I send that back to our corporate office. And then our corporate office goes back through all that. They, once again, that's their annual look at that bill rate. And they make any adjustments that they want to make. And then it comes back and I say, in this case to Steve, based on what you requested, these will be your new bill rates for next year. So he puts those numbers into your budget, okay? So, of course, it's in our best interest to keep that number down. So in some cases, we might give employees, let's say we gave them a 3% across the board, but we didn't raise the bill rate. That meant that we took that from our pile, not your pile, so to speak. You see what I'm saying? So that becomes all-inclusive. Then it all gets pushed back in and it goes into one master payroll of 700 people because they're all in the bill rate. They're all CCMC employees. What they each personally make, their hourly wage, is not disclosed to anyone. The only thing we disclose is the bill rate, okay, on that plan. So for that reason, many of you felt, well, wait a minute, that doesn't look real transparent to us because now we have no idea what CCMC is getting out of this deal. So, and it's not auditable because in order for me to go back and pull apart one of the years, I have to go to the master. And then if you think about, Rachel must send me payroll changes. I get at least 5 a month. So if I were going to try to go back, even myself, and audit your bill rate for the year, I would have to go back to that big pile and start pulling out all those different employees and trying to put them in a pot and say, well, this one worked from this date to this date and come up with a number. So it's very difficult, which is why it's not is easy. So the concern that we heard from the board was, we're not comfortable with this. And if you're on the outside looking in and you're not working, on a daily basis, you say, well, that's not transparent. We want more transparency. We want to be able to audit our payroll and know that if you say it's 10% or 12% or whatever the percent is, we want the auditor to come back and say, we have, in the midst of our audit, we are verifying that these numbers are true and correct, and then everybody goes home and they sleep easy. So I wanted to give you a comparison because what you asked me at the last meeting, if you said, well, what are we exactly paying this year? So, and I had told you that overall I thought it was about 12% markup over benefits. So what we did was, actually Steve and I did this today. We went back and we took the currently hourly rates and we did all the math. So
I've seen Steve's math before. It's not very
Steve
good.
did the math, yeah.
Well, I'll admit, we ended up calling Susan in to make sure we were doing it right.
Out of all the math I've done, 1 or 2 mistakes, it averages out.
You're right. So, all right. So this might help because I'm going to quote Debbie. She always says to me, she goes, well, what's CCMC getting? What, and I kept saying, well, it's not about, because CCMC calls that administrative piece, we call it like a recovery for where we throw things in the pot to do other things. But anyway, so we went back and we took this year's annual payroll, as was approved by the board, And based on that, and based on the payroll versus the billable, that CCMC on the current contract for 2017, there is in benefits, that benefit number is $550,412. And the admin fee that you guys have recognized as the 10, 12, whatever percent, and we're only saying it's an approximate, was $240,180. Which
Okay.
any of you could do the math and back into that.
I was close on that, but if that's the case.
12%.
The, yeah, you're looking at 12% instead of 10, okay.
Right.
Plus you have to add the admin fee in also.
Right, no, I did
Now, I
that.
will tell you
Yeah.
that if we were on the old contract basis, because the day we walked in to talk to the board, our extension was done in the old method, that in 2017, you would have been paying 13%. So actually, you're paying 1% less than you would have been the old way.
Was this 2016 annual, or did you annualize up to last quarter?
We did this year's.
You just did a quarter.
Right. We did, what we did, we took the 2017 budget, which is your approved budget.
Okay, you took the 2017 budget. Okay.
Right.
And what was the total payroll amount on that?
I mean, it's when you add all the total staffing from CJC and CROA, it's 2,001,498.
Okay.
And that's published, so again,
Right.
anybody can pull that.
Right.
You know, can I make my comment is that I think I'm a little bit different perspective than Debbie. I don't care, you know, if you're making $1 million or $100,000. What I care about is that we are getting a competitive rate, and we're getting,
Sure.
you know, and you're like, to me, you're like lawyers or others. Like lawyers, they don't charge, they charge their fee, and it's, you know, here's what we're charging you.
Right.
And that lawyer's not making, you're paying a lot more than what that lawyer's making. So I fully understand that. I don't have any problem with it. I guess what I just wanted to know was, okay, what are we paying? You know, and I think it sounds like it's very simple, that it's every full-time employee is 41% more than, and then from that, I want to just make sure that it's competitive, that is, you know, it's my job to make sure that what we are paying is competitive in the market. And so that's why I need this number, and then I think as a board, we need to go out and ensure that, you know, this is a competitive rate. My concern has been that I do still think that the majority of income that is being made on labor. And one of my issues or concerns has been is that I would love to see a contract where
12%.
you are, what's that? That, you know, that you make more, the more efficient you are. You know, so there's an incentive to be efficient. Whenever there's how money is being made is based on labor, that doesn't give a lot of incentive for that. So I'm glad. And I felt like this was probably the case. Is that you know, you kind of added up all your benefits and you said this is what our benefits is. You know, regardless of whether that is our actual cost. This is what I'm telling you. This, when we add up all these different things, these factors, we come to not 39, like 30%. Now, personally, I don't think that's competitive. I think the competitive rate is lower, but that's what we need to go through and find out and do whatever. So, thank you for this. I mean, I think this clears it up for me. I wish I'd been asking for it for a long time. It would have been. I wish I'd seen this earlier, but it does clear things up for me, and it does seem like it's a very simple, clear.
And to give you, I also did the example that you asked me for, where you said, if I hired a full-time person today and said to you, Pat, I'm going to pay that guy $15 an hour, and he's going to work full-time, what are you going to charge me?
Right.
So on a $15 an hour person, full-time, you would, it would be $21.15.
Right.
And if they work.
Is that times 1.41? That's why I used 100,000. It's a little bit easier for me to get.
Well, I had a calculator. So on a part-time person, at $15 an hour, and the bill rate would be $18.75, difference being in the benefits.
Okay,
So,
that's great.
does that finally answer everybody's question?
That answers my questions.
Oh, go ahead.
It answers a lot of, some questions. The one question I do have is, what isn't provided to the part-time staff since their burden rate went down over a 4-year period? Was there a benefit that was cut out? Because you have a burden rate running from 26.2 down to 25.0 during that period. So the only way you can get there is to cut the benefit, I would assume. I can't envision healthcare costs going down.
That I can't, I help with, because I don't get into all the benefit costs, so.
But I thought you guys said you did the burden rates, though.
No, this was given to me by our corporate office.
Okay.
Because I don't have all that information.
Does part-time get health care?
Typically not.
No, not,
Yeah, because if you don't.
Or something.
And the second,
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Lonnie.
and the second part of this is, with our straight billable rate, if we decided we want, and I'm just going to use the receptionist desk out here as an example, we decided we wanted a 4th receptionist, you're going to put her in at the same billable rate as the other 3 that we have right now, because we're paying the same rate for all 3 of them. So now you have a new receptionist up there with maybe a year's worth of experience total in the industry or whatever, but they're hired in here.
all 3 don't make the same. All, the 3 people up there do not make the same.
I know, but we get billed the same.
Not
Our
all.
billable rate for all 3 of them is exactly the same.
I'd have to go back and look, but
I can show it to you right here.
No, I don't think it's an argument. I'm just saying I'd have to go back and look
Can
at
I give you the amount if you'd like?
yeah.
So the question is, if you bring somebody in with less experience, should they get billed the same rate?
Well, no, shouldn't they be billed less?
Right.
And is this blended rate that we have for the 3 receptionists we have up there right now equivalent to this, or are we paying maybe for the most expensive one and then you're making more money out of the next 2 down? In other words, you probably have 3 different salary rates there because they've been here for 3 different periods of time.
Well, you have 2 that have been here for a very long time. 1 left and came back. But
all different periods of time.
But overall, the 2 of them together have been here about the same amount of years. And then you have a third. And without getting into payroll rates, because I don't talk about employees and their salaries in public and or on camera.
I'm not talking about payroll rates, I'm talking about our billable rates.
I know, but what I'm saying to you is no, it is not automatically the same.
Well, if we have 3 people that have the same billable rate, then their pay rate would be the exact same, right? I mean, that's based on this 41%.
Yes.
All full-time employees is 41%, right? So.
Yeah, but they're getting different pay levels based on yours.
That's what I mean, so the billable rate would be different. If they have different pay
Well,
levels.
because
the billable rate would be
benefits don't
different.
change
No,
because
what's
of
the
salary
burden rate or
necessarily,
the-
at least to a great degree anyway.
They're just saying.
Health insurance is the same price.
No, I get it. I'm just saying, my understanding is that every full-time employee, you take their billable rate.
What's the
Plus 41, plus 41%, that gets to be our rate.
Right.
Right? So if they have 3 different pay rates, well, we should have 3 different billables. We pay 3 different amounts. Right?
Well, you know, if somebody's paid $12 an hour, it's 41% on that.
Yeah.
If somebody's paid $16 an hour, it's 41%.
Right, exactly, yeah, so it's different.
2 are
Yeah.
the same, 1 isn't.
Actually, I was getting ready to correct. I was going to say I sit corrected versus stand.
Here we go. Billy wants to-
That's crazy.
But the
How did
actual,
that happen?
the actual difference between them, 2,500, so.
It's not a lot, because that's not the highest paid position.
No, I understand. I had viewed those,
And there's quite a span in maintenance. Lifeguards are pretty much the same because they're seasonal. And then different people have different skill sets.
The pool guys are pretty much the same, right?
So Pat, the only thing we really haven't seen in this is pay raises over the last 4 years have averaged how much?
On average, 3% a year.
A year.
Which is standard COLA.
So that should also answer a question for you if
Yeah.
you're looking at our overall increase.
Yeah.
If you're talking
Was-
about COLA's only increased
Which was on
2%
us,
over the
not on
last
you.
4 years.
Standard 3% cost of living.
couple
I'm not
things.
quoting the actual.
Say that again.
Standard cost of
The
living.
3% a year, and that's on you? Is that what you just said?
If your overall increase is 1.2, and I was giving on average 3% a year to every employee, then I would probably tell you that my benefits were probably going down.
Okay.
My overall burden rate. Because when you do the bill rate system, then the raise is more on me than it is on you. When you do the admin rate, then I have to come in and discuss salaries.
Got it. Yeah, got it.
For example, during the bad time here, where we had a lot of foreclosures and all of that, we lost several positions that we cut back and tried to, make do and that type of thing. And whereas in some cases, we might have given an increase, the board was not necessarily, going to do that, but in some cases they did. So we sat down in an executive session and discussed payroll and wages and increases. Jack, you would remember that at your meeting.
Pat, what about other expenses, expense accounts for management, copy fees, just other expenses? That
We
some
do not
contracts
charge
have?
any copy fees.
Any other expenses we're missing on this? Anything outside of the?
You have the resales and that's it. And then if somebody writes a bad check, if it's charged by the bank, then it's charged against the homeowner, but it also goes against you, but that's it.
Okay. And what percentage of the estoppel fee goes where?
The entire estoppel fee goes to CCMC.
Okay.
That's standard practice.
What does it cost to do an estoppel?
It's standard practice for whom?
In industry standard.
In the industry-wide?
It's an industry standard.
It's one of those negotiated things in a contract.
I know, that's what I want to ask.
Okay.
Where generally it's left in, but it's looked as your whole benefit package.
So as we build our process, that's something we should be talking about.
That's something I would be talking about.
Pat, what does it cost to do an estoppel?
Well, it's interesting because depending on which company you go to is what they charge. And CCMC's is 150?
150 is
150.
That's what we charge.
That's about
Now
the
here's-
same all across the board.
Yeah, but here's a question I have for you.
200.
How much of the work of the estoppel is done by our town hall staff?
All the accounting is done by shared services, which is
Okay.
corporate.
That's
And the inspection is done by town hall staff.
just the inspections down by town hall
Just the
staff?
inspection.
And
And
the receptionists don't put in all the information here?
no, it's done corporately.
Oh, okay.
So
That was a different issue then. 'cause
We
I-
have to
I
do
was
the
gonna say-
pictures and stuff in mode.
Yeah.
but
That's
then-
covenants, that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah, well, I was concerned that more of the town hall staff time was being used to do the estoppel.
No, and I will also say that if there is an error made on an
Mm-hmm.
estoppel, I can give you a good example, would be if we didn't double check to make sure there weren't legal fees. Well, let's say we gave the wrong number to the prospective buyer, and it was collected at closing, and then we find the error. If the error was made on the estoppel, then CCMC pays for the error.
Okay. Okay.
I had one other question. For the service area accounting support, there's some confusion. At one time, it was, I think, $408 per month per service area, I think. And I didn't see in the contract
No.
where
No.
it... what?
Let me clarify, because I know where you're
Okay,
going
yeah.
with that. Up until December 31st of 2006, CROA held the contract with the condominium associations. And they were all separate corporations, so their management fees that were paid all went to CROA. CROA, in turn, paid CCMC the $400 per separate FI per condo for shared services to do all of the accounting and collections.
Just condo, not the service area, not the condos?
Service areas, just the condominium, because they have a separate tax return. They're a totally separate entity. Service areas, CCMC does not charge you anything.
Okay.
Not a dime on service areas, but there is a service area fee that is paid by the townhomes, duplexes, and Artisan Park.
Right.
And those monies go directly to CROA,
Okay.
because we have a service area manager that works out of town hall, and if there's a collection call or what, your staff here does some administrative work for those service areas, but CCMC does not make anything on service areas.
I had asked Steve to describe our relationship with Artisan Park and CCMC and CROA. Can you fill us in on some of that?
I was going to go over all the details of everything, but since we're in an open meeting and there's potential disagreement there, what I will say to you is that we are proposing that one of their issues was that they felt that we did the bill rate incorrectly on payroll. And our best determination is that during the budget season, that Steve DeVore did not update the treasurer with we did not increase anybody's salaries, but the bill rate had changed. And because they were not notified, that we will be refunding those monies.
Okay.
With correcting, making sure the bill rate.
And then we will make sure that they do have their bill rates. We'll verify the fact that the treasurer got them.
How much money is that?
About $2,799. And then the only other thing in there is that there were 2 legal opinions that were done. One was Artisan had a disputed election. And it was an awkward situation because one of the people running was the chairman of the committee. So when an election is disputed, and what was disputed was how you count ballots. So we got a legal opinion on that. And then at a meeting, they wanted to talk about how and if Artisan Park could have other management other than what CROA had. And we got a legal opinion on that. So because they did not get an official, we don't have an official vote on record, we are reimbursing them for those 2 legal fees.
Okay.
So, and I don't know, Jack, if this is what you were trying to ask, but I guess.
Let me just continue.
Yeah.
The remainder of every other item on the list, we have pulled all the records to show that we didn't.
Doesn't exist.
Well, it's not that things don't exist, it just means that they're misinformed.
Okay.
So, and all of you will get a copy of our response. We have told the Artisan Park Committee that we will, all of this has to be verified through our corporate office anytime I want to write a check. But those were the 2 areas that we felt like, one of the things is, obviously we've worked with many of these boards for years, and we have a budget here at CROA. We know when to pick up the phone and utilize the attorney if we need one. And if it's a new issue, sometimes you guys do authorization, other times we pick up the phone and clarify it. And that is not the same relationship that we have with the service area.
I have a question on the staff. From 2013 to 2017, we had approximately a 20% increase in staff. Do you guys have the number of residents, what increase we had in that, or do you know what?
Basically what you did is, I think that the biggest change in staff occurred with, we increased park monitor, and it's almost some of the steps, I'm going to blame it on Steve. when I left, about the same time that, right before I left, y'all remember Jill, and to this day I still say that I owe her a lunch, dinner, and, I'm going to say it on camera, Jill, if you ever read this. She was trying to do all the communications, all the help desk, all the internet, everything. And she,
Jill?
Jill,
Remember her?
our communications.
Yeah, communications.
It was way back before Steve. Okay, go ahead. That was back before Steve. Way
Yeah,
back.
she was juggling, she was
our
juggling 3 or 4
communications person.
departments.
She was trying to handle 3 or 4 departments. And when she left, we moved Patrick down to do technology and run admin. I think some of that happened before you left, so that
I
increased.
know that I'm talking about between 2013 and 2017, because all that was prior to 2013.
No, I didn't leave
Or
till
14?
14.
So you added,
So Jill left, and in her stead, we hired a communications manager.
Laura.
No, I wasn't Jill, it was
Katie.
Laura, excuse me.
I know.
That's stupid.
There's no
Laura
Jill,
Poe.
that's why I'm like lost.
Laura Poe left, and we put Patrick down there and moved that, so we replaced his position, and we increased the recreation department.
Okay, that's 20%, that's 9 people,
Yeah, that's it.
all times.
So, just apologize, jumping back to Artisan Park, my question, I think the points that you clarified, that's issues between Artisan Park and CCMC. For the purposes of the CROA board, or at least my feelings on it, is I just want to know what the relationship is from a, I don't want to say administrative standpoint, but almost like a reporting line standpoint, because they're a service area, so they're not a condo association, correct? So it's not like they're their own independent corporation.
Correct.
So the CROA board, typically when we have to rubber stamp everything that comes up the line, but I've never gotten a clear-cut answer on, well, what happens if we say no to something?
Well, and they're not a board, they're just a
And
committee.
it's a committee.
Then we say no.
So supposedly, they
So
are
that's
operating
what
by
I
the
just
whim of the
don't,
board.
that's what I don't understand.
We've had several legal opinions on that, and no one is tried and true, as long as, this is a fun word we hear a lot lately, as long as the elected Artisan Park Service Area Committee is working and meeting their fiduciary duty as a committee, then you have, other than the fact that you get to see their budget and that type of thing, they pretty much are on their own. But they do fall under your federal ID number. And their insurance is also through you, which they do pay their share before anybody asks. If they were breaching their fiduciary duty and doing those things, then you would at that point have
A fiduciary duty.
you then would have a duty to act. So it's a very fine line, Eric, and there have been several different cases where you had the Artisan Park committee members coming down here and they were in the face of the CROA board because they felt like they were trying to put their thumb on them. But I will tell you that over the years, the position we always held is if they were about to spend a large sum in their reserves or whatever, that we told them to come and tell the CROA board about it. And at that time, the management normally backed up whether or not they did have the monies available. They are audited along with all the other service areas at the end of each year, along with the CROA board. And financially, today, actually, Artisan Park is a very financially sound. They really don't. But what you have seen is differing views. It's like one group that liked everything this way is now gone, and a group that likes it this way is now in. I think that they have some talented individuals that have just come on the board that I think are very sharp, but I think that there is a lot of miscommunication.
Do we have the power to remove a committee member?
No, you do not.
So just, and jumping back, who defines fiduciary responsibility?
Lawyers.
Well,
Yeah.
because I mean,
You ever heard the expression, take it to the judge?
well, yeah, because I mean, it's a kind of thing where I bet there's a lot of people that would say that there's votes that I voted yes on that I was not acting in their financial interest on the CROA board. But it's kind of like whose opinion matters. And because I could say that I think that, you know, let's say the Artisan Committee wanted to build a windmill, and I said that I don't think you guys need to mill grain out there. I think that's bad for the homeowners. But
Their architectural control is through you. In fact, they had a right to do their
okay,
own.
windmill is a bad example, but let's just say that I think that they're doing something. Let's say I think they're making a poor financial decision.
Such as, can you give me an example?
Sure, they want to put a bubble over their pool.
Well, it would. That's not a good one because that would have to rare state.
Crap. Help me out here,
Well,
guys.
what about the kitchen expansion?
Perfect.
All right,
Yes.
when they
I was
did-
than not to use something that I disagreed with,
Well,
but we
it
can
doesn't
use the
matter.
kitchen expansion.
When they did
Yeah.
their kitchen expansion, they utilized a combination of excess funds in operations, and had their reserve study updated, and they took a really strong look, so they were able to pay for those expansions without increasing their annual costs. They did it with what I'm going to say was excess funds. So because they didn't have to do a special assessment, they did not have to go back to the members for a vote.
I think ultimately, Eric, maybe the answer to this is their supplemental documents were written, and I'm not interpreting them as a lawyer, but my best guess is that it allows them to elect their own representatives as a committee. And that committee really is the say down there on how their dollars are spent. You all, if it's a reasonable request, you have to pretty much approve it. If it's fought, it'll probably be overturned.
Thank you.
If it's not a reasonable request, again, as Leonard pointed out, it's up to, if it got to that point, we're not saying that it is getting to that point, but if it ever got to that point,
right.
it would be a determination through the
Mediation
legal
or something?
process.
Okay.
Right.
Their documents are on our website.
Oh, yeah,
If
no.
you go through and read the Artisan Park Service Area documents.
And I still don't understand them.
But they're
Yeah, you know,
ambiguous.
Yeah, it's very vague.
Which
and
is
that's
why
what I'm trying to figure out.
The interpretation can't be done by us as managers. It would be illegal.
Let me, a question along those lines. So I think there may, I have some confusion, and maybe people in Artisan Park do too, is like, you know, we have a food service operation, liquor operation. You know, the reviewing that, auditing it, all that, you know, is that, I can see somebody in Artisan Park saying, oh, that's the responsibility of CROA. CROA is supposed to go in and audit. You know, it's their staff, it's their manager down there. You know, it's their, you know. So the question is that, you know, is that, if it is my responsibility, you know, we are not doing very active audits. I would want, if that is our responsibility as a CROA board, I think we need to do several things to ensure that we're meeting our responsibility. If it's, I would prefer to be Artisan Park that's doing that, but I don't want to be any confusion about, you know, whose job is that to do that? Whose job is it to make sure that, you know, rats aren't crawling around in the kitchen?
That's the general manager that's hired to run Artisan Park.
Yeah, but who, you know, who
But Susan's been down
there.
I would want, that worries me. So I would want an audit to go in to ensure that, you know, this, you know, complicated, you know, operation is being, you know, that all these things that are not seen, may not be seen, are being done correctly.
Well, in food safety, you use the rats as an example. That would be through food safety inspections. That would be identified, and there'd be a violation through food safety inspections. But you're talking about two different kinds of audits now. Then one is a financial audit, the other is an operational audit.
Yeah.
And the financial audit is all covered underneath the audit that's done for the different entities for CROA.
Right, but what about the other? What about operational audit?
An operational audit that was just completed last year, and it's not a necessity to do an
I'm saying, whose
operational audit.
responsibility? Is that the committee, or is that us? Is that, are we supposed to?
The committee paid for half of it, and actually CCMC paid for the other half of that to help support that audit.
Okay, so it's the committee's responsibility.
But the outcome, the takeaway from that audit was some sort of operations manual, some sort of checklist that if we as CCMC had another club within our portfolio, we could use that information to help make that club better also.
But my understanding is that there's not been an audit for a long time. So it's like,
But operationally, though, it is the responsibility of the club general manager to operate down there. Now, we do provide support here.
Who's supposed to audit that? Who is responsible for ensuring that this operational audit is something that
There's no responsibility at all for an operational audit like that. That was something that they chose to do.
I mean, Paul, you can ask the same thing. Who's responsible for our operational audit?
We are.
If you're not talking financial.
Well, you're talking about liquor and you're talking about food. It's a whole different.
Well, their issue was that they budget on an annual basis for the food and beverage operations to be a deficit. So each homeowner that lives in Artisan Park, part of their annual assessment goes to pay, which is not uncommon in private, of any kind of private club.
It's a private club.
Very common.
It's a country club type situation.
Right.
It's not,
Country club would be running the red.
Every service area committee over the years, I think, well, you had years of the same people on the committee, and they were all very, I'm going to say, they were happy with their menu, the way they were doing things.
They were comfortable.
And then, and they were comfortable budgeting that deficit.
I get what you're saying. I just want to make sure that we as a CROA board, need to be,
We're not missing our mark.
we're doing everything we are supposed to be doing.
Okay, well, they now, the purpose of bringing in someone from outside was, the new folks that came on kept saying, it kills me that we pay this deficit. And so they wanted someone to come in and do an audit of how they do everything. So they asked CCMC if we would share in that cost, and we said if we got something out of it that we could also utilize elsewhere, that because it's not CCMC's responsibility to pay for that audit. But going back, CCMC's expertise is not food and club operations. So we took the lead from St. Joe, who is experienced in food and beverage operations. They still have them today, and pretty much followed their format. But over the years on how you do inventory, how you account for food lost or waste, or what percentages should be, we didn't have any main knowledge in that. So when we looked to hire a club manager to do not only the operations of the service area, but to run that club, the number one skill set we were looking for was someone who had restaurant business background.
Pat, I'm sorry, I know Artisan's important, but I just wanted to get back to the contract real quick because we're running out of time. When the 2014 through 2018 extension was made, the majority of what has come up for the past several months, many months, has been there wasn't transparency and clarity in the contract. I would like to request, if it's okay with the other board members, what I'd like to look at is making that current contract clear, because when you look at it and you read it, it does not talk about the burden rate or the percentage that goes to CCMC. It's not there. It's the most unclear section of the contract, and I think it's created a lot of concern and distrust and issues, and I would like to request that that part is just clarified before we move forward with the process we're going through.
I think that's what I just did.
Well, we don't have it in writing in the contract. I mean, I'd like something.
Well, that'd be an addendum to the contract.
Addendum to the contract where it's in there.
Well, going forward, we're looking at a new contract.
Yeah, but we're still under this for 2 years. I mean, we still have 2 years under it.
Well,
18 months.
We could restate the contract, or as a CCMC contract, or we go out to bid.
Yeah, I would propose we step back and look at what's the larger picture that we're trying to accomplish. We're looking at the contract is ending, and so what do we want to do? What I've outlined with the board is what I see as 6 options for us. But I'd like, rather than outline that today, we have less than 10 minutes for this discussion now.
That was going to be the next meeting, right? Or next meeting was going to have to be.
I thought this meeting was about the contract.
We were going to do it this meeting, but we run out of time.
This meeting was about the contract. And so the next meeting is about the contract. So
Well,
So what I would propose is that...
January, December 31st of 2018.
Right, that's going to be upon us before we know. What I would propose is that we be very clear with what process we want, and that goes back to Vanessa's point earlier on, and a lot of what we've heard. Be very, very clear with what processes we want as we make a decision. That includes the taping and non-taping. And then what contract elements we want, which I think might address what you just said. And be very, very clear, and then decide which direction to go. Because, and I think it goes back, I think it was Eric 2 meetings ago, something about, I think.
We can check the recording.
What would, but what the overall goals are that we want.
That wasn't my voice.
I'll give attribution to Paul then. Paul remembers, whatever. But I think we just need to be very clear and deliberate with our process and move forward.
Well,
and I know you have that as the next
May 2nd is our next meeting, and that'll be our agenda.
Okay. Can we have can we have a longer workshop then?
Well, we had it on the appeals meeting tonight, which
right.
That occurs once a month. It's not due next month at all on May 2nd.
Okay, so if we can...
There won't be an appeals meeting after the May 2nd.
Oh, okay.
If we can have a...
the May 2nd was a daytime meeting, I believe, wasn't it?
Was a what?
A daytime meeting?
9:30, is that what it was?
You did a daytime meeting.
Yes, that's fine, but...
That would be
okay.
Yeah, it was 9:30.
Okay, yeah.
It's gonna go all
All right, so May 2nd is the date for that. All right.
I mean, we still have this.
And I don't know how the other board members want to... I know I did not share it with management. But I proposed a jump start on what the process considerations might be, which includes transparency and so forth, and then what some of the content elements might be. And I know, Jack, you had done a lot of that. So clearly, what do we want in the contract? And I think, again, they can address that.
Okay.
Not only, but to clarify,
It's a matter of clarity.
simpler writing of it.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
I'll tell you right now, Steve's going to pass out what Pat has given us, so you may frame that and make additions and subtractions on that, as a starting point. So.
Okay.
I have one point that I hit a while ago. I misspoke on that all 3 receptionists were paid the same. I apologize.
Yeah, you said you were wrong. No.
So I already said I sit corrected for that one.
Uh-oh,
But-
he's got something else.
But as I go through then, and I back the burden out of both of those salaries, there's only an 80 cents difference per hour between the person that's been there the longest and the person that's been there the shortest. And I doubt if that's what their pays reflect.
Well, we can't discuss their pay.
No, but I'm not discussing their pay. I'm discussing a differential that I came across.
Let Susan talk to you about that then.
Yeah.
Okay.
That I believe is one of the anomalies that I've seen in the numbers, let's say. I just wanted to put that on record. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I also, may I just, excuse me if I speak, but I believe that certain positions don't make, I think you top out somewhere with certain positions. So, that's maybe what happened. I don't know, because I don't have access to salaries.
Well, I can tell you that what you would have started a person at working the reception desk 10 years ago and what you would start that person at today are entirely 2 different hourly rates, and you are not talking a large hourly. And I really don't want to talk about salaries in this
Then let's
meeting.
not.
If you want to have a private conversation, I'll have a conversation with you, but there is no anomalies in any salary, and I will go on record to my grave to say that. Because I have to tell you.
Pat, I don't disagree, and I'll be glad to have this conversation off record. I only report what I see in the numbers.
Okay, that's fine.
Right.
But when you make a comment, there's an anomaly or something doesn't look right, I'm telling you, it's right. But I'll be happy to discuss the salaries with you.
All right, does anybody else have anything to add?
I move to adjourn.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. Come back here at 6:30 for the next meeting.
Okay.
Is that an order?
Please. We have please.
Pretty pleased with sugar.
Come back.
I'll stop the camera.
Well, do you feel like you got to run there?
That's great. I don't know why. We don't run out of computers.
All right. I just